So we're talking about grammar on FIList, and I had a question about whether object pronouns could serve as a subject in a clause. And just to make it clear, I found this list so you can see subject pronouns, I, you, he, she, we, object pronouns, me, you, him, her. And normally, the simple case, you think of if you want to use a pronoun in the subject, you use the appropriate one from the subject pronouns list, and likewise with objects. So you would say, she said it to them, not her said it to they, right? So that's easy. But like a lot of things in grammar, there's trickier cases. And so what we're trying to figure out is the sentence, let him be. Let him be. And what's the structure there? And so people were posting various theories. And so I came up with another example, which is make him angry, which I thought was sort of in the same genre as let him be. And I was saying angry is an adjective, basically like subject implied you, because it's a command, verb make, object him, make him what? Angry. And so Anonymous chimed in and had an interpretation that I thought was very interesting. Anonymous said of make him angry, I'll start writing a bit here because it gets tricky to keep make him angry, is an infinitive clause functioning as a noun which is the object of the verb. And so Kate gave various examples. She tried to relate it back to let him to be. So she said, let him to sleep, let him to paint, let him to play, let him to eat. So her argument is that all these, the infinitives, the bare infinitives, are functioning as adverbs, if I'm understanding correctly. So there's a lot of confusion around these expressions. I'm going to copy-paste these. Now, Anand said, I think it's an infinitive clause. So I assume that what Anand is saying is supposed to apply to all these cases. He picks one. He picks like the second example, and he doesn't specify. He's not separating out angry. Looking at this, angry still seems different than these other ones, because it's like to fit the form, it would have to be like make him anger, and you could say make him to anger, but it doesn't fit the form of the other ones, I don't think. So let me read this more. So I take it's to be referring to all these cases. And so this is the part that I found especially interesting, is that Anand is saying that, say, this whole part is an infinitive clause, and the object pronoun is the subject, and the whole thing is functioning as the object of the verb. So, to be clear, for all of these, there's an implied subject. Oh, actually, I shouldn't have changed that. Right? So, there's still an implied subject, but, so you, led is the verb, and then him to be is an object, infinitive clause serving as an object which has a subject. And a verb too, because it's got the verb, the bare infinitive verb from the, like that's why it's an infinitive clause, because it's the infinitive verb. But that would be an unusual or a less common at least form, because infinitives having objects is standard. I'm still not sure about that bottom one. So I'm asking, does this analysis also apply to make him angry? That seems different to me because, right, to anger is the infinitive form, not to angry. Alright, so I think this is good. We'll sum that. And so this is making a bit more sense to me now, but when I first read Anand's analysis, I started to formulate an objection to saying him is the subject of this clause on the basis of him being an object pronoun. And then I remember that a similar issue came up recently with regards to us, which is another object pronoun. So a question occurs to me based on the below and example above. Can object pronouns serve as subjects? And this is ambiguous because we're not talking about serving as the subject of the sentence necessarily, but of the of a clause. And so I pasted in this older thread where I was doing some analysis of Curie's Think website, which is pretty good, easy. I picked it because the sentences, at least to start out, are relatively easy. They got more complicated, so then I ended up doing some other stuff. And so the example here was, let's take a fresh look at some good philosophy. And so I got stuck because, and you can see the connection, like, you know, that let word, man, that is a tricky, there's a lot of nuance in those three letters, right? Let him be, let us. So what did I say? I said, I want to say something like this is imperative, right? The subject, the implied subject is we, instead of you. But, like, if you imply a subject, looking at this again, I don't think it makes a ton of sense. Because if you imply a subject, like, you let him be, you make him eat, those read okay. We let us take a fresh look, like what, it doesn't flow. Yeah, so I just kind of gave up. I was sad. Object is look, I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. To find the verb, start by listing all the verbs or maybe verbs. I see take and look. What about let, right? Not prevent or forbid. So that's right. So Anon, it was Anon, right? Yeah. Anon says the word let can kind of be ignored. Yeah, I don't understand why the let can be ignored. Because in this example, you let him to be. Okay, if you want to treat this as an infinitive object with a infinitive object of the sentence with a object pronoun serving as the subject of the infinitive clause, okay. But then let is the verb, is the main verb of the sentence. But then, right, so I think that the way to resolve this is to say that, so I think there seems to be a contradiction between the way that Anon is treating let us take and the suggested approach for let him be. So I think the approach to take might be to say that it's a maybe it's the same sort of thing, like it's a infinitive, bare infinitive clause, except in this case the object pronoun is serving as the object. So that would be like, so I guess what Anon said is basically right, except instead of ignoring the let, we incorporate it. Well, but hang on, because then right, so yeah, having just an infinitive phrase is fine. To plant a garden, right? That could be a perfectly fine subject of a sentence. To plant a garden is good, right? Okay. So I'm going to reply to this. Why wouldn't we say that let, or could we say that let us is an infinitive phrase, is a bare infinitive phrase, serving as the subject? Now I'm not so sure, because like to plant a garden is good. That's a thought that's coherent. But to let us take a look, a fresh look at some good philosophy, that doesn't flow. Like, to plant a garden is a thing, it's an activity. But, right, because infinitives, if an infinitive is acting as a subject or an object, it's acting like a noun. And so it has to have some kind of thingness to it. I don't know. That's an incredibly vague statement, but I think it's correct. Let me look at some other examples. To go on vacation, that's an activity. Going on vacation. I told the dog to run home quickly. It's like, actually, let me make sure that I've got the more recent analysis correct. Functioning as a noun, no. Anon says that very explicitly. Huh. See, this is what's bothering me about it. About a lot of this stuff, maybe. Maybe that's the common thread. Well, let me get the question out here, and then I can tie it to the other stuff. For both examples, I have an objection, though it is very vague and might not make a lot of sense. I'm going to say it anyway, because that's what I do on my YouTube channel. An F5. So I'm going to make this a bit simpler, because I don't know. Yeah, instead of saying for both examples, I'm just going to go with the latter one, because it's sort of a separate question. I don't want to ask about two examples when one of them is still unclear to me what the analysis should be. Actually, this is like not even the right email for this question, so I think I'll just ask that in the appropriate thread. For things of the form following the pattern of you make him to eat, I have an objection. What is the nouny type thing in him to eat? Is there some way to think about it or rearrange stuff to make it more clear? Or is my question misconceivable? Okay, I think that's pretty legit. Alright, I think I'll end this here because I want to get some replies to the questions I just asked, and I have other stuff to do, so thanks for watching.